Is today gonna be fun?
Yeah, everything's fun. Tomorrow.
Every day.
Because vocab is very important. Yes. You will learn tomorrow why the vocab you are doing today is important.
I'm dying.
Well, we're going to do it together in class. I'm not making you do it by yourself. Alright, everybody have everything written down in their planner?
Yes.
Okay, what you are going to need today, piece of paper, something to write with, and a textbook. So if you do not have any of those, if you do not have a textbook, please come get one. And make sure you have pen or pencil and a piece of paper.
Let's go.
Alright. Once you have a piece of paper, pen or pencil, and your notebook, or your textbook, not your notebook, can I please have somebody read out loud what the learning target says? Trinity.
I can compare and contrast the American organizations, the coastal that originated in the Washington.
Thank you, Trinity. All right, what I want you to do as your very first thing on your piece of paper is write down this learning target in your own words. Yes.
I forgot to grab the textbook. Should I grab one?
Yeah, grab a textbook. Once you have that written down in your own words, please turn to somebody around you and tell them what you wrote down. Explain to them why it relates. If you have it written down, turn to a partner and explain to them what you wrote down.
I can tell you're
It sounds like very
Here, talk to you. Hi.
Oh, wait, no. That's not the learning target, that's the goal.
Make sure you're paying attention to what your partner says.
Mine includes every citizen, like in the Native American.
My eraser fell.
Alright, did everybody share with the partner at this point?
Yes.
Yes? Alright, Trinity, what did your partner say? Alright, what did you say? So she just changed compare and contrast to similarities and differences. Good. Alright, thank you. Alright, who else can share something that their partner said? Was that a hand? Yes, no? Oh, okay, you guys work together. Somebody else. Bryce, what did your partner say?
Let's see this. I can compare and contrast the peoples and the coastal and plateau that originated in the state of Washington.
All right, thank you. Any others? Cruz.
Bryce said, I can contrast and compare the coastal and plateau and Native American organizations that originated in the state of Washington.
So he just flipped around, compare and contrast.
Yes, he did.
All right, so Trinity and Jane both said similarities and differences. Is there another way of saying compare and contrast that's different than similarities and differences? Yes.
Cause and effect.
Cause and effect? Not exactly, but you're on the right track. You're on the right track. Anybody else? No. I think similarities and differences are a great way of also saying compare and contrast when you're describing two different groups that you want. Yeah.
There's also contrast and compare.
Yes. Also contrast and compare. Those are the same things. Yes, Trinity. Yep, similar and different. You can say same, differ, any of those kind of words that you can think of that have the same meanings as similarities and differences, or comparing and contrasting. All right, so what I want you to do next is answer the following question, which is, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement. I want you guys to write down 3 things that you can remember about the different regions of Washington. It can be all about one region, it can be about 3 different regions, but I want you guys to just go back to when we discussed the 7 regions of Washington and just write something, 3 things down that you remember about it. Go ahead. If you're having a hard time remembering, we're going to discuss it as a class. So what can you do when we discuss it as a class?
Take notes.
Take notes. Great idea.
So smart, Cruz. I try to smart you.
When you're done, go ahead and put your pencil down so I know that you're done. Give you guys another minute. All right, who wants to share something they remember? Cruz.
They're all in Washington?
Yes, they're all in Washington. Jane.
The Puget Lowlands receives a lot of rain.
Yep, Puget Lowland receives a lot of rain. Cruz.
There's 7 regions?
There are 7 regions, which I said at the beginning.
I
Elliot.
remember that.
The Puget Lowlands are connected to the Puget Sound.
Yes, they are connected to the Puget Sound. They both have the same name. Will.
Washington was formed over millions of years like the erosion.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Bobby.
The black bears in the Columbia Basin.
Yep, there's black bears in the Columbia Basin. Hallie.
Cascade Mountain elevation exceeds 3,000 feet.
Yep. Exceeds 3,000 feet. Trinity.
The Okanagan Highlands are the source of both the Washington and Central.
Yes, because they have all those big wind turbines. Uh-huh. Yep, and the Grand Coulee Dam. What else? You didn't get 3. There were plenty that were listed that you could have written down, right? Yeah, Jane.
The Blue Mountains has many trees.
Yup, Blue Mountains has many different kinds of trees. Did anybody write something down about maybe industries? Yeah, Katie.
Nope,
It's okay if it's not about industries.
Cascade Mountains is the biggest.
Yep, biggest mountain range in the state of Washington. Well,
Washington is big on wheat.
yup, big on wheat. Do you remember what regions?
The Columbian Basin and
Basin.
Blue or Basin.
Yeah.
I don't know how to
That's okay.
pronounce it. I think the Blue Mountains. I know they have some dairy and wheat.
Yup.
And maybe
You-
one above us.
The Okanagan Highlands?
The name of it, but yeah.
Yep.
that one.
You hit on the right 3. All right, Trinity.
The Olympic Peninsula and the Puget Lowlands both count as most of Washington's seafood.
Yup, for sure. Anna.
Cascade Mountains are made of 3 different parts based on 100 million years, 35 million years, 50 million years.
Nice. All right. Yes, Bryce.
There's at least one species of tree in every region.
There is at least one species of tree in every region. Bobby.
There's water in all of the regions.
There are through rivers or the ocean or lakes. All right. Anybody have anything else to add? No? Okay. Yes?
They're all on Earth.
Yes, they are all on Earth. All right. So what I want you to do next is pull out your textbook and turn to page 86. We are going to discuss some vocab.
Maybe we're trying for another language.
No, this is still all in English.
Dope was like freaking.
All right, everybody on page 86? Anybody willing to volunteer to read the first paragraph that starts as the abundance? Trinity.
The abundance of food, water, and supplies allows many tribes to live in the region. A tribe is a group of Indians who speak a common language, share similar cultural practices, and to recognize one another as belonging to the same people. Among the most well-known coastal tribes of Washington were the Makah,
It's okay if you mispronounce them. Quinault.
Quinault, Chinook,
Column.
Qualam,
Chehalis.
Chehalis,
Cowlitz.
Cowlitz,
We're all listening to Trinity right now.
Puyallup,
Lumai.
Lumai, Squamish, Nisqually, Nooksack, Muckleshoot, Duwamish, and the Queet.
Thank you. So you guys are not going to be responsible for remembering all of those names because I know they are very hard with lots of letters that aren't typically in many of the words that we use. So what I want you to do, who can tell me in their own words what a tribe is? Based off of what we just read. Caden.
It's a group of Indians who speak a common language.
Yes. So that's what the book says. Who can say it in their own words? Hallie.
It's like a group of people who like commonly share the same culture and the same like belief system.
Yup, exactly. Cruz, you want to add on to it?
They have like a bunch of similarities based on like how they live.
Uh-huh, exactly. Elliot?
It's a group of people that share the same culture.
Yep, and share a similar culture. Bobby?
They all have like this area and somewhere in the region they live in.
Right.
They all live in the same spot.
Right, exactly. So let's write down. So in your notes, make sure you write these down. All the words that I write down, you write down. So the first first one that we just went over was tribe. And I think you guys were able to explain it super well. So it's described as a group of Indians or Native Americans who share many commonalities like language, culture, and belonging. Alright, once everybody has that down, can I have somebody to volunteer to read the next two small paragraphs? Allie, thank you.
The numerous coastal tribes of Washington occupied relatively small territories. The tribes did not need much land because food and resources were so easily attained. Each tribe was divided into villages. Villages were permanent settlements that did not move. The number of villages differed from tribe to tribe, as did the size of the village. Villages typically consisted of several families all living in a few shared houses.
Perfect, thank you. Can somebody in their own words tell me what is a village? Caden.
Basically a small town.
Yeah, like a small town, exactly. What else, Bobby?
No, I was gonna say.
You were gonna say small town. Somebody else wanna add on to that? Bryce?
It's a permanent settlement that consists of families.
Yeah. So permanent settlements that consist of families, so exactly kind of like how Caden and Bobby had described. It's like a small town. Anybody else want to add? Yeah, Alexia. It has people in it, exactly. So the villages are consisting of people, it's permanent, and it's like a small town. So let's write that down.
Maybe you could trade at those villages.
Yeah, you can definitely do trading, and we are going to discuss that in just a couple of minutes about what that is. So that is a good segue. Thank you, Bobby. So everybody has that down. We'll move on to the next paragraph. All right, would somebody be willing to volunteer to read the first paragraph under coastal society? Bobby, thank you.
The coastal Indians had one of the most unique societies found anywhere in North America. Society is a word which refers to the organization of people within a community. Some societies are very free, giving people within the society freedom to do whatever they please. Other societies are very strict, meaning people are limited in what jobs they can perform, and they can marry, where they can live, and many other aspects.
Thank you. All right, what's a society in your own words? Elliot.
It's a population. of
Population. Yep, it's a population of people. What else? Well,
It's kind of like the government and the group of people who live in it,
yes.
like the way everything corresponds with each other and all that crap.
Yes, so it's definitely how the people are organized, and government can be a part of a society. Anybody else have anything else to add on to that? No? All right, I think Will did a a good job
Oh, yes.
describing.
Let's see.
All right, who would be willing to read the next little paragraph and then the bigger one after that? Thanks, Trinity. You can finish writing down what you have first, though. Go ahead.
In strict societies, an individual's choices are defined by their position within the society. Scholars call positions within the society classes. The more classes that a society has, the more strict it is. Coastal society was very strict. It contained 4 distinct social classes. The highest social class was the chief. A chief ruled a village. He was always male and the wealthiest member of the village. Chiefs were a hereditary position, meaning that a son or closest male relative would succeed his father as chief. Chiefs controlled the most land, slaves, weapons, canoes, clothing, and any other item of significance. They also controlled the best fishing spots, forests, and fields for gathering fruits, nuts, and other plants.
All right, can you guys remember from last semester when we talked about world civilizations, the idea of somebody who's in rule? So like think about it like the chief. What societies did you know had what looked like a chief? Yeah, Bryce.
China had an emperor.
Yep, China had an emperor. What else? Is that a hand? Maybe? Yeah. Never mind. Okay, Trinity. The Inca, yeah. So exactly, the Inca is another Native American group. So it's a different organization than the ones that we're going to be discussing here that are from Washington, but it's definitely the same idea. Anybody else? Yeah, Kaden. Oh, yeah, you too. Drink. Anybody else can remember ones? No? All right. So who can describe what a class is in their own words? Bryce.
Your position among society.
Your position among society. Perfect. Is there any other thing that somebody wants to add? Yeah, Jane.
Kind of like a social ranking.
Exactly. So you add on, that adds on perfectly to what Bryce said. So a social ranking of your position in a society. So I think that's a perfect definition. And since now you know what society means, since we discussed that just a minute ago, now it makes sense more on what classes means. All right, can I have somebody volunteer to read the last 2 paragraphs on page 86? Cruz, thank you.
Well, I was going to ask a
Oh.
question. Well, I can read, but I was
Okay.
going to ask a question.
Okay, what's up?
Are we going to write down chief?
You're not going to write down chief.
Okay.
Yeah, these are just the ones that are going to be exceptionally important for a project that you're going to start tomorrow,
Oh,
which we'll discuss at the end of class.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Can you read those last 2 paragraphs for me?
Yeah. In coastal society, chiefs were the absolute leaders. Within a village, the chief was the government. If someone committed a crime, their punishment was decided by the chief. Likewise, disputes between tribal members were settled by chiefs. Chiefs accepted advice from other tribal members, but in the end, all decisions were made by the chief. Every village had a chief. Thus, within a tribe, which always had numerous villages, there were many chiefs. However, not all chiefs were equal. Some chiefs were more important than others. The most powerful chiefs could rule over lesser chiefs. A chief's status was determined by his will. The wealthier the chief, the more power and respect he received.
Awesome. So when you think about it, so we discussed villages and we discussed tribes. So in each tribe, there's multiple villages. So if you have a village that has a chief who's in charge, that chief may be in higher in his society over somebody else who's in the same tribe but in a different village. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Who can read the next paragraph below the chiefs? Thank you, Hallie.
Below the chiefs were the nobles. Nobles were family members of the chief and other people who had wealth. Nobles advised the chief, and noblemen were the warriors and hunters of the village and tribes. Noble women were held in high esteem. They raised families to perform no other manual labor. They had slaves to fulfill those of the task.
All right. So when you look back at some of the civilizations that we discussed last semester, what could you compare it to for nobles? What could you compare that to? From any other civilization or society that we discussed? Yeah,
China.
China. So who in China was like the nobleman here?
Like the workers under the emperor. They like serve the emperor.
Yeah. So workers. What else, Anna?
People who had more important jobs.
Yeah. So what's something that could have been a more important job in any
Be able to write, maybe.
Yeah, so these people, they could have the ability to write. Writing was not a huge form of communication with Native Americans, but in some other societies, yeah, it for sure was huge. And can anybody think of anything else? Think of it as kind of like the wealthy class, the high class. So these were the people who made a lot of money and who had other people doing all their work. So, which we'll get into in just a second. All right, who can read the next paragraph? Caden, can you read the next paragraph for me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wait, is it underneath the?
Yep, underneath the.
Underneath nobility were the commoners. Were the commoners. The commoners were the craftsmen and laborers. Unlike the chief and nobles, they could control no land. Commoners depended heavily on the nobility. In return for their labor and the goods that they make, commoners were allowed to fish and gather foods in the territory of the nobles and chief.
Awesome, thank you. Is there who's somebody that you could compare commoners to? Think potentially like who would the commoners of today be?
Blacksmiths.
Bryce.
Of today.
Doesn't have to necessarily be of today. You can think of another
I
example.
was thinking like peasants.
Kind of peasants. You're on the right idea. Yeah.
Second.
Nope, not slaves. Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, like us. So it would be when you think about it. Make sure you're focused. When you think about it, it's like the middle class of today's society. So it's the people who are working every day to make sure that they can provide for their families. And they're not exceptionally wealthy, but they're also not exceptionally poor. If that makes sense.
It's like everyday people.
Yeah, everyday people. So it's how it's called. That's why they're called the commoners, because they're like the common man. Yep. So.
Oh my God.
Woman.
Or a woman, you're right. Or a woman. All right. Who can read the next paragraph? Thank you, Will.
Okay, underneath the nobility were,
No,
like,
next
not
one.
there, both men and women, commoners worked very hard for their living. In general, common, men made tools and carved artwork such as totem poles. Common women were responsible for childcare, clothing, gathering food, and preparing meals.
All right, thank you. So that just adds on to some of the jobs that they could have potentially done as commoners. Can somebody read these last two paragraphs on this page? Thank you, Caden.
The lowest class in coastal society were slaves. Slaves had virtually no rights as humans. What is that? Whereas all other members of the village were entitled to fair treatment by others according to their status. slaves were viewed as property. Slaves were gathered in warfare or purchased from tribes who specialized in the slave trade. The majority of slaves were owned by chiefs and nobles. A slave could be abused or overworked or received any other kind of treatment his or her owner desired. In general, slavery was for life. A slave could be released by his or her owner, but it was quite rare.
All right, thank you. So when I asked like what an example of a commoner could be, Alexia did say slave, which is why I said slave is not a commoner. Slave is what other societies have we discussed where slaves have been involved? Abby. Greek and Rome. Yup. What else? Hallie.
The African country and culture.
Yup. Africa. What else? We have something else? Think about it. Pretty much every society up until like the late 1800s had slavery of some kind. Yup. It's not, and that's the thing. It's not necessarily like when we think slavery here in the U.S., we think that it was African Americans. That's not always the case. They could have been somebody who looked just like you, but they were still a slave. And that's kind of how it worked in these Native American societies. Yeah.
Well, like back then, because they had, Europeans had black slaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, did Africa have white slaves?
No. They did not. So no, that's a legitimate question, and that no, they also had the African Americans because there weren't really many people back then in Africa who were white.
Oh, okay.
So it could have just because in America it was white people who were using African Americans does not mean that in other places they were just using somebody of a different race. In the U.S., we definitely made it something that was based off of racism, though.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any other questions about that? No? All right, so when you think about it, slavery still does exist today. I know it's banned in pretty much every single country and is illegal, but that doesn't mean people still don't do it. There's still people in the U.S. who are under slavery. It's just under wraps in that, like, it's kind of like an underground ring in that if the police and the government don't find out about it, then there's not a whole lot that can be done. Does that make sense?
CNN 10 about that.
Yeah.
Yep, you did watch CNN 10 about that. All right, let's move on to the next page. So go ahead and flip it over. All right, can somebody please read the 3 small paragraphs that are written under economic activities? Focus, boys. Can somebody read those 3? Thank you, Will.
Okay, so economic activities. The first and foremost economic activity of the coastal Indians was gathering of food for the tribe. Washington's coastal Indians were excellent whalers, fishers, food gatherers, and hunters. The Pacific Ocean and Puget Sound provided the coastal people with a variety of food. These food sources included whale, salmon, otter, seal, razor clams, oysters, smelt, abalone, halibut, cod, shellfish, crabs, and many other kinds of seafood. Western Washington rivers yielded salmon, trout, and other fish. They also ate waterfowl, small birds, deer, bear, elk, and mountain sheep, and goats. A lot of hands in there. Coastal Indians used smokehouses, open pit fires, and hot rocks to prepare their food. They ate roots, nuts, fruits, and berries. They baked or smoked salmon, steamed clams, and cooked meat and fish. In addition, they also dried food to preserve it for later meals.
Perfect. Thank you, Will.
They smoked salmon and like
Salmon.
No, not in a cigarette.
No, that's another form of like barbecuing, and that you use an excessive amount of smoke. Yeah, it's not like when you think about cigarettes or something like that.
Yeah, like, gotta make it on fire, they're like, oh.
No, it's just a way that it can be cooked. But, alright.
Good sound.
Focus. Okay, so what is the word economy? Chris?
Is that like kind of like your money system?
I said that, yup, that's definitely a part of it. What else? You were gonna say that? What can be involved in the money system? Bryce.
Buying and selling.
Buying and selling. So what's another way of saying buying and selling? Trade. There you go. So it's the way in which these people were trading. So when you think of economy and an economic activity, what's something that could be involved in an economic activity? Trinity. Gathering food. That's a great example. What else? Yep, I know they discussed a couple in your book, so if you need to go back and look. This is why you're going over vocab. Trinity.
Whalers and fishers.
Whalers and fishers. Yep, those are great examples of economic activities. Bryce.
What slaves were?
Slaves, yeah, because they are very much foundationalized of how people collected food and got work done and anything of sort that the slave is involved in. Cruz.
How they cook their food?
It can be. So if that involves some sort of trade, then that can definitely count as something. Anybody else? All right, so now that you know what's involved in economic activity, how do you think you could define economic activities? Trinity.
Things that people do that help in their society.
Yep, things that people do that help in their society. What else? Can anybody add on to that? Bobby?
Trade.
Trade, yeah, so that's involving the way in which, think about it, so economic activities is basically the way in which a society is built upon. So you need to have your trade, you need to have the different kinds of workers, you need to have people who specialize in different things so that your economy can run proficiently. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Does anybody have anything else to add on to it? No? All right, let's write down definition. Thank you. All right, once you have written down and made sure that you have every single vocab on your sheet, I want at the bottom of your sheet for you to answer these two questions, which are, why are the terms we discussed today important to the class as a whole? And then, do we still live in a society with different classes and economic activities? I want it in full sentences, so that means you need to have at least two so that you can answer both questions. Once you have answered both questions, go ahead and put it in your sheet from today in the period 2 bin. No, write it on the sheet that you want to take notes on. make sure name, date, and period are on it so I can make sure that it gets back to the right person and that the right person receives credit for the work they did today. Writing up answers to those questions before we move on. Yeah, the clock's broken.
That clock's right.
Yeah,
That clock's right.
It's right now?
Yeah.
It was not right during the first period.
Yeah, it wasn't.
During home bases.
Yep.
It was 4 o'clock until this.
Alright, almost everybody's done. If you can remain quiet while your last few classmates finish up, that would be appreciated.
I don't think it. Actually, yeah.
Just learn one word for them. One word.
Alright. So this is what we are going to be starting tomorrow and then working on for the next little while. It's called My Native Notebook. And it's gonna be it's gonna be a fun project that you guys are gonna be working on. So you're gonna be comparing and contrasting, just like our learning target, the 2 Native American organizations. So you'll have the Coastal, and then you'll also have the Plateau. And in the book, you are gonna have multiple different pages that you're going to be completing, and you're going to be taking notes from your textbook on each of these different ideas for the 2 different regions, or 2, not regions, organizations. And so you'll then at the end you will write some ideas down about comparing and contrasting the 2 groups. And then they'll do about the author, but that's not the points. But so you'll be responsible for writing down 3 bullets for every single one of these pages, which is why you guys are going to have a couple days to do this. I'm not expecting you to have it all completely done tomorrow. And then I will also give you a rubric. At the end, you guys will be able to score how you believe what grade you received. You'll also be responsible for drawing pictures and making it look good. I'm not going to be judging it off your artistic ability. So think of it that way. If I can see that you definitely put some effort into your drawings, then you will receive those points. Yes. You could print pictures if you wanted to. We just don't have the ability to do it in this classroom, but if you wanted to at home. Yeah? Any other questions? We'll definitely go much further in depth for this tomorrow. And start it tomorrow.
Okay.
All right? All right, let's start putting away our textbooks then. Our books 1 through 10.
I'm done.
Was 9.
Really tired.
8.
I had two. I had two.
Was 8. Alexia, do you have 8?
I have two.
Thank you. 7. Thank you. 6.
Do you know what I'm doing in English? I really hope it's not another argument.
2. Who has book number 1?
Totally didn't do that.
Do you?
I do not. Oh, maybe I do. No, wait, book number 23. Alright, we'll find it. Alright, books 11 through 20.
Yeah.
No. 1 through 20.
Who has 17?
Do you ever
Do you have 17 on?
like a plastic bag?
I was number 10.
15.
I'm just gonna wait before everyone.
I'm like, are you joking on something? Yes.
Did anybody have anything from 21 to 30?
Experimenting.
24.
I like, you know that line you see, you know,
2.
yeah.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright, you guys have about 2 minutes before the bell rings. You can just chat amongst yourselves quietly.
Yes, you do. If you knock that down,